Shabbat Shalom. Hello out there. Shabbat Shalom. Okay, I sort of hear you. Shabbat is in the world and gives us a chance to have a little bit of shalom, a little bit of peace, a little bit of rest, and by being together, perhaps a little bit of wholeness. So we sing the word shalom. Shalom, 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 shalom. Just voices now. Shalom. Shalom.
We welcome the Sabbath with that incredible harmony, knowing that as we bring our voices together in prayer, we are allowing God to enter our lives. And symbolic of Shabbat entering is the candle lighting. And so we invite Cheryl and Mark Bachnick to come forward, celebrating an anniversary, as we turn to page 14 and bring Shabbat's light and God's light into our lives.
The flickering flames of the Shabbat candles mark this moment as sacred time, a time of warmth as our community joins together in prayer, a time of brightness as our spirits are lifted by the melodies of our people, a time of light as we look toward the future through the eyes of our children. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav. Vanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, eternal source of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot and commands us to kindle the lights of Shabbat. Thank you.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav. Vetzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Amen. We continue with the Charodi on page 34. Even if you're watching online, just please sing after Neil. Sing with everyone here.
Lecha dodi, לקראת קלה, בשבת, קבלה, lecha דודי, לקראת קלה, נשבע, נקבלה, שמור וזכור בדיבורך, השמיענו אליך מיוחד, אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, שם תפארת ולתהילה, לך דודי, לקראת קלה, נשבע, נקבלה, לך דודי, לקראת קלה, נשבע, נקבלה,
לקראת שבת לכו ונרפא, כי היא מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם לסוכה, סוף המעשה במחשבה תחילה.
לך דודי, לקראת קלה, נשבע, נקבלה, לך דודי, לקראת קלה, נשבע, נקבלה, בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ולסולה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי חלה, לך דודי, לקראת קלה, נשבע, נקבלה, 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 לך דודי, לך דודי.
We turn to page 42 for the Chatzi Kaddish. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא יברך ירטה וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון ויומכון וחיי לכל בית ישראל, בגלה ובזמן קריב ויאמרו, יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם עולם מעלמא היה, יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה, אלא מכל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונבמתה, דמירן בעלמא ויאמרו, לילה la 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 Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach
of page 45. Our kind deeds are used by God as seed for the planting of trees in the Garden of Eden. Thus, each of us, by our deeds, has the power to create our own paradise. Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim. Blessed are you, O God, who makes the evening fall. We continue on page 50. O God, you traveled with our fathers as they journeyed through the wilderness. You sang with our fathers at the shores of the Red Sea. You stood with our fathers as they fought against oppression. You have brought us all here, fathers and mothers, daughters and sons, to our own promised land of freedom.
Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai. Together in the chanting of Ve'ahavta, page 57. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavecha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha ve'hayu ha'devarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom alevavecha ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, הייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. Ani Adonai Elohechem Emet.
On page 60, we celebrate our miracles, the water parting, wall tumbling, sun standing still miracles of our ancestors. Who is like you, O God, creator of fulfillment and joy. Continue with the Song of Freedom on page 62.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש. נורא
תהילות
עושה
פלא,
נורא
תהילות
עושה
פלא,
אדוני מצוותיך ראו בניך, וכהים לפני משה. זה אלי יענו ויאמרו, זה אלי יענו ויאמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. יא לה 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 לה, יא לה 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 לה, יא לה 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 לה, יא לה 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 לה. ונאמר כי פד אדוני את יעקב, וכהלא מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
We continue in the middle of page 64. Together, cause us, our Creator, to lie down in peace, and raise us up, O sovereign God, to renewed life and peace. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel, and be our shield of mercy and of peace. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. Blessed are you, Adonai, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem.
לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם, כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי, וביום השביעי שבת וינפש. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי, וביום השביעי שבת וינפש. We rise together. Adonai, Sefatai Tiftach, Uberfia, Gite Hilatecha. Eternal God, open my lips, that my mouth may declare your glory. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Leah, Elohei Rachel, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'Hanora, Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Ve'konei ha'akol, Ve'zocher hasei avot ve'imaot, U'me'yevi geula livnei bneihem, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר, מושיע ומגן, אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחייך כל אתה רב להושיע, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמנתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. As you're seated, we pray silently.
Turn now to page 83 for the Mishaberach. And once again, our focus leaves that sense of silent prayer to a more active form of prayer. An active prayer because we become focused. We become focused on the fact that there are those we know, those we love, those in our community, and those in the broader environment of which we're a part who are in need of healing. We hear about them for a moment in a TV program, perhaps, and in a second we feel what's going on in their family's life is a part of our life. We hear about them in a moment of conversation with a friend. Did you know that someone is going through something painful and difficult? And so our prayer is that they will experience a refuah, a healing, and that our prayer is always that we will be by their side with strength to guide them, to support them, and to love them. We sing together on page 83.
Find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach imoteinu mekor habracha. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
It is my pleasure to invite up a couple about to be married, and they're going to be married twice. Once on Sunday, and then again on a cruise ship the following Sunday, so it's extra special. This is their first step in their two-part marriage. We invite up Arica Goodman and Zachary Fricaro to the bima to receive their wedding blessing.
Bruchim habayim b'shem Adonai, berachnuchem mi beit Adonai.
We have gifts for you two before I bless you. We have a gift of a one-year membership to Temple Israel, as well as a beautiful mezuzah, which I'll give you.
Thank you.
Here. Can I put a little, actually, I'm going to use this. I feel like it's a baby naming. I want everybody to see you. Arica and Zachary, as you prepare to enter the covenant of marriage, we ask that God sanctifies you and helps to create your home that is built upon Jewish values, that is built on faith, on learning, and on community. And may your chuppah, your wedding canopy, which you will stand under in just a few short days, be transformed into a home of openness and hospitality, filled with love and respect and laughter and joy, and a home filled with trust and respect. God, may you always be with them, guiding them, supporting them, and encouraging them in all of life's experiences. And God, may you grant this beautiful couple the most precious gift of all, the gift of peace. And together we say,
Simin tov, mazel tov, simin tov, mazel tov, simin tov, mazel tov, simin tov, yehelanu. Simin tov, mazel tov, simin tov, mazel tov, simin tov, mazel tov, simin tov, yehelanu. Simin tov, mazel tov, simin tov, mazel tov, simin tov, mazel tov, simin tov, yehelanu.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. In the shtetl, there were two types of preachers. There was the darshan, who would explicate the Torah portion, and there was the magid, the storyteller. Now, darshanim we still have. Storytelling, however, is becoming a lost art, and that's because most of the stories that we hear come to us on screens, both large and small, Although you can't call television small screen anymore because they're like 58 inches. It's, Gesundte televisions now. But thank goodness, Temple Israel discovered and has fallen in love with a master of the art of storytelling, Aubrey Davis, and we have brought him back over and over again and are doing so again this evening. You're all very lucky. I will tell you, he's been here so often, I'm not going to go through his resume once again, but I will tell you that in not having heard the story that he told to Shabbat Mishpacha, the kids just before this, about the Mouse King, you missed something. He's never going to, he's going to be great tonight, but not as good as he was with the kids. I can tell you that for sure, because it was amazing. And if you have the chance to go online and see it, if we recorded it, I hope, you really must do so. So with a great deal of love and kavod and respect, we call upon truly one of the great storytellers, Aubrey Davis.
Okay. It's getting a little lower if possible. Yeah. Please. I guess I better be good after that. Okay. The villagers had heard that Joe Ha was a preacher of some unusual kind, so they invited him to the synagogue to speak one Shabbat. And he stood up and he said, "Oh, people! Do you know what I am going to say?" And everybody looked at everyone else and they said, "No." And Joe Ha said, "You're too ignorant even to start on." And he left. But for some reason, the congregation invited him back the next Friday, and he stood up again. He said, "Oh, people, do you know what I am going to say?" And this time they said, "Yes." "Well," said Joe Ha, "if you know, there's no point in me telling you, is there?" He left again. But they didn't give up. They invited him back for the third Shabbat in a row. He stood up again. He said, "Oh, people, do you know what I am going to say?" And this time the congregation was ready. They said, "Some of us do, some of us don't." "Excellent," said Joe Ha. "Then let those who know tell those who don't know." And he left again. I wish I could get myself off the stage with that woman. Not quite. There's a curse or a blessing on these tales that I'm going to tell. You can't really come to grips with this little character unless you hear at least 7 or 8 of the stories. So bear with Joe Ha and me for a little bit longer. One day Joe Ha it was broad daylight, and he was in the marketplace on his hands and knees, looking, and someone came over and he said, What are you doing?" He said, "I dropped my key." "Well, let me help you look," said the man. So they searched together 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And finally, the man said, "All right, Joe Ha, stop. Think. Where did you drop your key?" "Oh, I dropped it in my house." "In your house? Well, why are you looking for it out here?" "Well, there's more light out here than there is in my house." One time, Joe Ha was outside his house spreading breadcrumbs everywhere. And someone said, "What are you doing, Joe Ha?" He said, "I'm keeping the tigers away." "Joe Ha, there aren't any tigers around here." "That's right. It works, doesn't it?" One time he went into a bakery and he said to the baker, "I'd like that chocolate cake over there." And the baker walked towards it, and Joe Ha said, "Stop! How much is the cheesecake?" The baker said, "Well, it's worth just as much as the chocolate cake." "Well, I'll take the cheesecake instead." So the baker boxed it up, and Joe Ha took it and he started to leave. The baker said, "Wait a minute. You didn't pay for that cheesecake." Joe Ha said, "No, I left you the chocolate cake. It's worth just as much as the cheesecake." But she didn't pay for that either." "Of course not. Why should I pay for something I don't want to buy?" They made Joe Ha a judge. And it was his very first case. And the plaintiff spoke so passionately, so eloquently. Joe Ha said, "I believe you're right. And the clerk of the court said, Your Honor, you have to hear the other side before you make your decision. So then the defendant got up and spoke so logically, so convincingly. Joha said, I believe you're right. And the clerk said, Your Honor, they can't both be right. I believe you're right. They're not all ha jokes. I have to, this is something of a discipline for me, because I know that it's not that funny, but I think it's important anyway, so I tell it as if it's a joke. So it's part of the thing. Let me see. Oh, there was once a philosopher who came and made an appointment to debate with Joha, and unfortunately Joha wasn't home. He'd forgotten, and the philosopher was furious, and he looked on the ground. He found a piece of chalk, and he picked it up, and he wrote on Joha's door, "Stupid oath," and then he left. So Joha came home, and he saw the sign. He ran over to the philosopher's house. He said, "I'm terribly sorry. I forgot all about our appointment. Of course, I remembered it as soon as I saw that you left your name on my door." Okay, last one. One time, Joha was up in a tree sawing a branch. You know how when you're seated on the branch of a tree and sawing it, you can be on the right side of the branch or the wrong side of the branch? Wrong side of the branch. A man passed below and said, "Hey, you're on the wrong side of that branch. You keep sawing it, it's going to break, you're going to fall to the ground." Joha said, "Just a minute. Am I some kind of an idiot that I should believe you? Are you a fortune teller who can tell the future?" The man shook his head, walked on. Joha kept sawing. Crack went the branch. Down he fell, not broken but bruised. He picked himself up, hopped on his donkey, which was tethered nearby, and he trotted after the man, jumped off, ran over, and he said, "You were right about the branch. You're amazing. You can tell the future." The man was shaking. He said, "Listen," said Joha, "I have a question. My whole life I've wanted this question answered." "What question?" said the man. "Tell me, when am I going to die?" The man said, "I don't know when you're going to die." Joha said, "I know you know. I know. You don't want to tell me. You don't want to tell me." The man was fed up with him. He said, "All right, you know when you're going to die? You're going to die when that donkey of yours over there sneezes 3 times. That's when you're going to die." And he left. And Joha started to laugh. He said, "My donkey, it never sneezes. I'm going to live forever." You know how it is with donkeys? When you want it to stop, it goes. When you want it to go, it stops. And just when you think your donkey will never, ever sneeze, shoo! Joha was horrified. He took the donkey over to a pool of water. "Drink, my little donkey," over to some luscious green grass. "Eat, my little donkey. Don't sneeze." They walked on. Shoo! Joha was desperate. He looked on the ground. He found 2 stones and shoved them up the nostrils of the donkey. He walked on. Shoo! The stone shot from the donkey's nose, hit Joha in the back of the head. "That's it. I'm dead." So he lay down on the ground like he was dead. So by and by, some people came along. They said, "Oh, look, it's Joha. He's dead." So they picked him up, put him in a coffin, headed down the road towards the cemetery. Now, the road to the cemetery split in 2, and the people began to argue about which was the best way. Some said the left, and others said the right. No left, no right. Suddenly, Joha sat up. He said, "Just a minute. When I used to be alive, I always went left." So there's a taste of this character. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these stories, part of an oral tradition that was passed on by Jewish people in the Middle East and beyond, and part of a vast storytelling tradition that seemed to be running in parallel, in tandem with whatever spiritual traditions we are more familiar with today. And it was as if it was on the street, this kind of, it isn't just the humor, it's all the folk tales. Maybe it was more accessible to the women when they got together, because they couldn't go to the synagogue or wherever they were praying. But the stories were told again and again and again, just like the Torah tales are read again and again. And there was an opportunity through I think it's almost like a parallel system on the ground to come to an understanding of yourself and to come to an understanding of your world. Those stories that I just told you are jokes, some of them not tremendously funny, but I hope you find them interesting. And this character fascinates me. I don't understand him. And I know that I don't understand him, which I think is a start. And I think I've been reading Joha's stories for about 35 years. I get more from the reading and the listening to the tales than I do from the telling of them. But it's that familiarity over time. So I'm going to leave Joha. Can I tell you another story? Okay, it's part of the folk tradition. It's something that Jewish people would have told. I don't know how common it was. I have seen it in collections. There was once a peasant who had a daughter, and she was very wise beyond her years. And she often said things that surprised her father. And one day, he fell on hard times, and he had no recourse, and so he went to the king to beg for help. And when the king heard him speak, he said, where did you learn to talk like that? He said, from my daughter. And who taught her? And he said, God and our poverty have made her wise, Your Majesty. The king was amazed. He handed the peasant a bag of money, and he gave him another sack, and in it, 30 eggs. And he said to the peasant, take this sack to your daughter and tell her to hatch these 30 eggs by tomorrow, or I'll kill you. So he was distraught. He went home to his daughter, and almost in tears, definitely in tears, he went to his daughter. And she looked in the sack, took out an egg, and she said, Father, this egg is boiled. And he didn't know, he was beside himself. And she said, Father, we'll go to sleep. I'll have an answer for you in the morning. And sure enough, the next morning, his daughter handed him a small sack, and in it, boiled beans. What's this? He said. And she told him what to say. Later that day, the king was driving down the road in his carriage, and he looked out into a field, and he saw the peasant, this man, plowing the field, and he said to the oxen, plow on, my good oxen, so that these boiled beans may grow. And the king looked out, he said, how on earth do you expect anything to grow from boiled beans? And the peasant, prompted by his daughter, said, well, how can you expect anything to hatch from boiled eggs, Your Majesty? And the king laughed. Later that day, there was a knock at the door, and there was a servant from the king with a bundle of flax. And he said, His Majesty would like this bundle of flax made into sails for his entire fleet by tomorrow morning, or else. And again, the daughter thought about it overnight, and the next day, she handed her father a block of wood, and he took it to the palace, and he said, Your Majesty, if you can make all the tools for spinning and weaving out of this little block of wood, we'll make your sails. The king laughed. He handed the peasant a vial, a glass vial. He says, I want to increase my domains. Tell your daughter to empty the seas with this vial. And he left. The peasant left. And the next day he was back with a bundle of twigs, and he said, Your Majesty, if you can dam up all of the rivers on this earth with this little bundle of twigs, then my daughter will empty the seas with your little glass vial. He said, Your daughter, have her come to me. And so the young woman came before the king, and she bowed low, and he said, Woman, what is it that can be heard at the greatest distance? And she said, Thunder and the lie, Your Majesty. The king was so surprised, he grabbed his beard, and he said, My beard? What is my beard worth, do you think? One of his advisors said 100 gold pieces, another said 1,000, another said 10,000. He said to the woman, What's my beard worth? She said, No more, no less than 3 summer rains. And the king looked at her and said, I love you. Will you marry me? She said, on one condition. And he said, what? And she had him produce a piece of paper, a marriage contract. And on it, she made the king write with his own hand that if ever he should become displeased with her, that she could take with her whatever she loved the best. And he wrote it out and sealed it with his ring. And so they were wed, and they lived together in great joy. But you know how it is in marriages. There comes a time. And one day the king was furious with her. And he said, leave. You leave this palace. And she said, well, can I leave tomorrow, Your Majesty? And she said, well, yes. So that night, the wife prepared for the king an herbal drink, an herbal tea. But this time, it was customary that she give him this tea. But this time, she gave him something to put him to sleep. So the next morning, when the king woke up, he found himself in the peasant's cottage. He said, where am I? Who's prisoner? And his wife said, mine, Your Majesty. He said, well, what is this? And then she produced the marriage contract. She said, you remember, Your Majesty, that you wrote with your own hand that I could take whatever I like the best. That's you, Your Majesty. And all of his love came back to her, back to him, and they lived together in peace and joy to the end of their days. And that's the story. It's beautiful, isn't it? Yeah. You're so quiet. And my official time is up. Should I keep going? Or one more story. Let me see what I can tell you. This is probably, this is from another tradition, but there's something about this story that just resonates with me. I hope you don't mind. It's First Nations story. And we'll see what you think. There was once a village of Mi'kmaq people built beside a lake. And at the far end of the lake stood a lodge. And in that lodge there lived a being who was invisible. And it was said that any young woman who could walk along the shore with his sister, who could see him, the invisible one's sister could see him, anyone who could walk along the shore with her, and who could see him and identify his bowstring or his sled pole, then she could be his wife. And many people tried. They would walk just as the sun set, and the sister would ask, can you see him? And most of the women would say no, but occasionally there would some that would say yes, and she said, all right, but what is a sled pull? And the girl would say a piece of leather or a green flexible branch or something like that. And then the sister would know that she was lying, but it would take her back to the lodge anyway and would help prepare a meal. And they knew that the invisible one was real because when he came in, he took off his moccasins, and when he hung them up, they appeared. Now, in that village, there was a widower, and he had 3 daughters. And the youngest one was small and weak and often very ill. And the 2 elder daughters abused her terribly, especially the eldest. The eldest would take cinders and burn her all about her hands and face. And soon they called that poor girl Uchigisqua, which means in the Mi'kmaq language, the girl with the rough face. And one day, the 2 sisters, the elder sisters, decided to try their luck and see if they could see the invisible one. And they dressed themselves up and they walked along the lake with his sister, but they failed the test. Now one day, the father came home with some beautiful beads used for making wampum, and little Uchigisqua went to the young Uchigisqua went to her 2 elder sisters to beg a few. And then she took a pair of her father's old moccasins, and she put them in the river and got them soft. And then she went into the woods and cut some birch bark off the trees and made herself a cap, legging, and gowns, put marks on it in the fashion of the people of long ago. And then she walked off through the village. She was going to try the test. And there were the loafers about the village who hooted and hollered and made fun of her. But as she approached the lake, the sister accepted her because she could see far beyond the near outside that the rest of the world knew. And as they walked along the lake, the sister asked, "Can you see him?" And Uchikisko said, "Yes, he's wonderful." "And what is his bowstring?" And she said, "It's the rainbow." "And with what does he pull the sled?" She said, "It's the Spirit's road, the Milky Way." "So you have seen him," said his sister. And she took Uchikisko home and bathed her. And as she did, all the scars fell from her body. And when she combed her hair, it grew long and black, like the raven's wing. Her eyes shone like stars. In all the world, there was none more beautiful. And then, into the lodge, came the invisible one. And he was beautiful. And he was terrible. And he said, "So, we've been found out." And his sister said, "Yes." And so Uchikisko became his wife. Thank you so much.
על הדבש ועל העוקץ, המר והמתוק, ביתנו התינוקת שמור אלי הטוב, על האש המבוערת, המים הזכים, על האיש השב הביתה מן המרחקים. על כל אלה, שמור נא לי אלי הטוב, על הדבש ועל העוקץ, על המר והמתוק, על נטוע, אל תשכח והתקווה, השיבני והשובה אל הארץ הטובה. For the honey and the bee sting, for the bitter and the sweet, all the things which join as one to make our lives complete. For the future of our children, for our prayers will never cease. For the hope that with tomorrow comes a world of peace. Al kol ele, shmor na li hatov, al hadvash ve'al ha'oketz, al hamar ve'hamatok, al natakor natua, al tishkach et hatikva, ashiveni ve'ashuva ve'haaretz hatova, ashiveni ve'ashuva el haaretz hatova.
Aubrey, I was in my second year of rabbinical school, And I came home. I was raised in Miami, Florida, so I came home and I met my uncle. He had 2 brothers who were rabbis, and he wasn't as successful. He was only a doctor. And he belonged to a synagogue, and he would say to me, "You're about to become a rabbi. Here is my only advice for you. When you give a sermon, here are the 2 things you have to do. You have to use at least 1 or 2 words that they have no idea what they mean. And the other is you got to tell them a story. You have to tell them a story that they can take home." I have always listened to 50% of my uncle's advice. I don't know any words that you don't know, and I don't Google them, but I always think it's about the stories. I will meet someone, and they may not remember the content or context of a sermon, but they may remember the story. They may remember the moment. They may remember the character that we heard about tonight. They may remember that moment when the stars fell and a couple became one. So thank you so much for sharing your stories with us. There's much to be thought about as we leave from this beautiful service. I'd like to call upon Joyce Keller, an officer of our congregation, to deliver the congregational announcements.
Shabbat Shalom. And no typical announcements tonight, because on this Shabbat, we're asking you to get out the vote. You all got, many of you, hopefully everyone, got a handout tonight. Right now, the World Zionist Congress, a parliamentary body created by Theodor Herzl, is holding elections to decide which organizations will have a say about the future of the Israeli landscape. Everything from women's rights, partitioning of land, and immigration is at stake. As Reformed Jews who are dedicated to equality between men and women, human rights, and egalitarian Judaism, it is our duty to vote for ARZA in the elections. ARZA is the Association of Reformed Zionists in America. If we want our voices heard in Israel and our vision of an Israel where all are welcomed and all are respected for their approach to Jewish practice, we must vote. Voting is easy. If you are 18, Jewish, and a resident of the United States, you are eligible. Just go to reformjewsforisrael.org and you will be walked through the process step by step. All the information you need is on the handouts that you received tonight. Remember to have your family members vote as well. Any of our rabbis are happy to help. Together, our voices and our votes can make an enormous difference. So please, everybody, vote.
You'll be hearing that announcement many times until April. I should say, though, that it's in your best interest to vote early. And it's true, because Temple Israel I'm not kidding, is holding a raffle. Once you vote, you'll fill out a form that you voted. That becomes your raffle card. You get more raffles inserted into the pot if you vote earlier, and then less as it goes along. And the winner gets MS, reserved parking at the high holidays at Temple Israel. So even if you don't care anything about Reformed Jews in Israel, that alone is worth it right there. We now turn to page 189 in our prayer books. We invite all the children forward, but also Jerry Bloom in honor of his 90th birthday for the honor of opening the Ark.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גאולה יוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים משתחווים ומועדים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא
Our thoughts turn now to our loved ones who are no longer with us as we recall the names of members of our family and our congregation who have died in the last 30 days. We remember Karen Bloom, Dorothy Chaikin, Shirley Krugloff, June S. Davidson, Cynthia Dene, Mark Joseph Eiselman, Max Epstein, Deborah Rita Friedman, Marvin Fullett, Yetta Gabe, Raymond Galper, Glenn Allen Goldstrom, Maury Green, Lee Levy, Suzanne Lynn Lichtman, Alan Joel Perlman, Isaac Rudzinski, Rosalind C. Schwartz, Kenneth Singer, Sylvia Stocker, Martin Buddy Wonder, Maureen Zach, Shirley Fink, and Bob Farah. We also recall the names of our loved ones whose yahrzeits fall on this week. Edith Baines, Max Basson, Andrew Burnt, Shirley Bernstein, Joan Bloom, Sadie Sarah Kamiker, Ann Cohen, Sophie Fulby, Leonard R. Gilman, Adele Goldberg, Lily Rogel Grablowski, Simon Gervitz, Frida C. Jackson, Bessie Katz, Harry Katzman, Samuel Kohlenberg, Barry Matthew Leiner, Elaine Lumberg, Milton C. Moretsky, Harold Lader, Elaine Mullen, Rabbi W. Gunther Plout, Marge Rector, Eleanor Reisman, B. Roberts, Cyrus Ross, Murray Sedley, Bené Susan Stern, Louis Volk, Ben Wish, Lona Wishnak, Joan Bloom, Francis Chasen, Lottie Shallis, Isidore Brodsky, Anna Brenner, Albert Phil, Lucille Kaufman, Ida Katzman, Joseph Mandel, Lainey Wexler, Gloria Okrent Olson, Thelma Keller, Rosalind Evanoff, Marilyn Agranov, Ruth Claire Moretsky, Benjamin Goldhoff, Martin Steinberg, Mildred Garfinkel, Harry Sklar, and Sonia Kudowitz. We remember them with love and we honor them with the words of Kaddish found on page 199. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divrei chirutei b'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv imru. Yehei shemei rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lalmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shemei d'kudsha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, ta'amiran be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehei shalama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Hosei shalom bimromav, huya aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. And may the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved among us, as together we say.
We sing together for a complete peace with these words of Oseh Shalom. Oseh Shalom bimromav, uyaseh Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, amen. Oseh Shalom bimromav, Shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom. Shabbat Shalom.